com cada contração, quanto mais intensa a dor ficava, eu ficava pensando, agora eu vou conhecer meu filho.
And 5 minutes later, we're in a taxi. Taxi driver is very excited because he's waited his whole life to drive a pregnant woman to hospital. His moments arrived.
Eu tô dançando funk, vou até o chão e não aguentei subir, né? Eu falei,
Tinha passado 50 dias sem chuva em São Paulo e aí naquele dia caiu um toró daqueles assim.
Tirar uma calça, tirar outra calça, tirar minha calça. Aí quando eu olhei meu barraco cheio, eu falei, que é isso?
And me and the taxi driver run into the hospital, shouting, "There's a woman about to deliver a baby."
Eu tava sentindo meu corpo e conversando comigo mesma e com o bebê, né? Vamos sair, vai abrindo com cada respiração.
Ai, vou desmaiar não. Tá, acorda.
And then early in the morning, this real person comes out. It's amazing. I know it's what's supposed to happen, but it's still weird.
Life completely explodes when you have a child.
And as soon as he was born, all of a sudden, I didn't matter at all.
No one could have prepared me for this level and this depth of love.
They squall, they scream, they're unpleasant. But then suddenly I had this little being, and it was amazing.
Sou o escudo dele, sou a Mulher Maravilha pra ele.
Eu aprendi mais com ele em 2 anos do que eu aprendi na minha vida inteira.
My relationship with my husband after the baby was born. What relationship?
Eu me perdi, eu não sabia quem era a Gisele, quem era a mãe do Benjamin ou da Vivi.
Aí eu chamei eles e falei, ó, tem uma coisa errada, tipo, não tá legal, eu preciso de ajuda. Eu sabia que falar era a única saída que eu tinha.
E aí, tem dia que você fala, puxa vida, mas eu passei o dia só falando bah, ah, ma.
Finally, men are told, you have to hold your child. You're a loser if you don't hold your child.
A potência do olhar de uma mãe amorosa para um filho e do filho para a mãe é de uma força, de uma magnitude cósmica.
Oftentimes, as societies, we fail to support parents in providing them the support they need for their children.
We're in this together, and we have to support each other so that we can grow healthy children everywhere around the world.
We need to put children at the heart of a compassion revolution to help them learn their own song, their own wishes, their own sense of who they feel they are. These children that come through us are the children of the universe.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. I am sure all of us now have joined the afternoon region. Good afternoon. It's a warm welcome to today's series of a webinar of 4. And today's webinar is looking at building systems to support learning through play. It's one among several other webinars that we have been running on the right to play. And we can expect another webinar on the 9th and on the 16th. But today, welcome all. We have put together a series of a list of very experienced panelists that are going to share with us their country experiences. But before I go there, I would like to just bring to your attention a few things that maybe it is important for you to note, and especially a lot of the work that is happening on social media as we continue to run these webinars. I want to let you know that, this webinar is being translated into 3. We have Portuguese, French, and English. And I want also to let you know that you can let other people know what is happening using the following hashtags. Engage with us on social media. You can use hashtag I stand for children, hashtag COVID-19. You can use early childhood development. and you can use learning through play. As we interact on the webinar, I am sure a lot of you are experiencing this. You'd probably want to rename yourself so that when we're interacting with you, it's easy to identify with you and to know probably from which organization you are coming from. You can chat also in your language. There are my colleagues here that will engage you. They'll be there to answer any other question that you have. And they're happy to also bring that question to the panelist, should it require that kind of intervention. Now, this is one of the activities that we are doing, or one of the interventions that we are doing. You know, the world is facing a pandemic, and part of the response of AFCAN is hosting a series of webinars. As much as we are discussing about the right to play, we also want to discuss what lessons have we learned about with COVID and how it has interfered with play and what we can do better. AFCAN has also launched a series of blogs that can be accessed through our website. We've also documented a series of good responsive caregiving practices in 5 African countries. That too can be available on our website. And by the time we're closing this webinar, we would want to hear from you so that we can make the consecutive webinars better. We thank you so much for those that joined us for the webinar when we were starting on 25th. Thank you for your feedback. You will be able to click somewhere, and in 2 or 1.5 minutes, then you could give us your feedback when we come to that. And also to let you know that this webinar is being recorded. So you could have yourself a copy of the recording to just listen somewhere quietly, especially if the sessions might probably go faster than you would wish. And most importantly, there are some links that you'd probably want to look at even later or as we go on with the webinar. You could look at the AFCAN website. You could also hit us up on our social media accounts. You could do our Facebook, our Instagram and Twitter, and also a lot more on on YouTube to just see all the documentaries that we have produced and a lot of resources that we have produced as well. Now, to help us weave through this webinar is a very experienced guru in development work, and this is Maniza Ntekim. Maniza is the ECD Regional Advisor for UNICEF in the Eastern and Southern Africa Regional Office, and she's formerly also Program Officer at the Open Society Foundation, where she led OSF's global ECD programs. And her experience really is quite immense. I've already started seeing it. By the time we were putting together the program, I could hear her saying that I've worked with Shakira, I've worked with so many others. So we are really indeed blessed to have her today. Maniza has also worked a lot with the Global Partnership for Education, being part of the country's grants committee. She has also been a policy advisor for CIF. She's worked for Amnesty International UK and also consulted for Save the Children UK, UNESCO, DFID. And therefore, when I say that this is a minefield of wealth that is really going to help us weave together the presentations from the panelists and also the charts that are coming from the participants to try and help us really understand how can we move together to building systems to support learning through play. It is my single most pleasure and honor to invite Ms. Maniza to come and make her remarks and to take us through the rest of the program. Welcome, Maniza.
Thank you very much, Janet, and I hope you can all hear and see me. It's fantastic to be with you here today, and we've got so many participants. I see 95 already. Maybe we'll even make a century before we're done. Colleagues from all around our region speaking all different languages. That's why it's fantastic we have this interpretation facility as well. And do let us know if you have any challenges accessing the interpretation. I'm sure my colleagues will be able to offer guidance on that in the chat. So I want to start first of all by really thanking AFCAN for putting together not just the discussion we're going to have today, but this whole series on a really important issue related to learning through play and how critical it is. Today we're talking about system strengthening to support this. In the subsequent weeks, there's a conversation around how to engage with parents, and then also how to support in the classroom itself. So a really fantastic series of events that AFCAN have organized with partners, but I really want to thank you, Janet, Lynette, and all the team for enabling us to come together on this important issue. Now, before we get to our fantastic panelists, who I'm saving my time for you to hear from them, you see we've already got 101, so we did meet the century. I'm very pleased. I wanted to just give a few framing questions around what we're discussing today. So play is really, it's just how children learn, and it's how children are, and it's what they know from the moment they're born. So when we see children doing make-believe, when they, I don't know, I have my two daughters, I'm always having to dress up as all kinds of characters. When they're doing this, they're really developing their creativity skills, critical for when they need to develop their literacy skills later and write all the good stories that they write and entertain us with. When they're playing with their puzzles, they're developing also their critical thinking and their logical thinking and their problem solving, critical skills, early skills to develop maths and to develop numeracy. When we see them putting bricks together or pulling pens and pencils together, drawing, we're seeing them developing their fine motor skills. Again, critical skills for if they're to learn. And when we see them singing and dancing, and when we sing and dance with them, it brings us such pleasure and joy. You saw from that video how much the mothers and fathers and parents and brothers and sisters were getting from this interaction with their young ones. When we do this with them, it really helps their mental health, it helps their concentration, it helps build their resilience, it helps them know we love them, which is some of the critical scaffolding that children need in order to grow and develop. And I want to say how critical it is that we use this methodology to enable children to start to learn from the moment that they're born. And that this is, and the ability to play and the joy of playing never leaves you. I mean, my father's over 70. I've never seen anyone quite so playful still. You never stop needing to play. And I really want this to be a core message too. And I also want another core message, which is if you don't play, if children are not enabled to play, they cannot learn. No play equals no learning. And many of us know the learning crisis we have in our region, with children getting to the end of primary school, not able to even do the basic maths, basic reading, basic communication. We know too many of our children don't even complete primary school. Many don't even make it into secondary school, going even further to develop the skills and attitudes and attributes that we need to grow our economies and to enable our societies to do even better. So no play, no learning really results in some serious human capital deficit much later on. And what I really want to get the sense of is that, of course, before children even enter primary school, their ability to learn is determined almost before they even set foot in the classroom. So even though today we're going to discuss a lot around play in the preschool and early childhood education settings, we can't forget that play, of course, starts from birth, and that we need this stimulation, this play, and this love, and this nurturing care. I'm sure many of you on this call know about the nurturing care framework and all the elements children need. So it's really about that journey from birth all the way through to when they come to preschool. And then it means they're on the right path for learning and development by the time they enter primary school. So one of the key things around learning through play and early childhood education is that we need to see early childhood education, pre-primary school, as a core function of the education system. And if we want to tackle the learning crisis, if we want to assure better equity, if we want our systems to be efficient so we're not wasting money by children starting and not finishing and repeating, then we really have to invest in those early years. And if we want those early years to be quality, then we have to see play as the central methodology. So that's the second equation. So we get play, gives us a quality early childhood education experience, gives us the chance to have good learning by the end of the education cycle. So it really is, today we're talking about one of the most fundamental critical issues I think, in development. So without further ado, one last thing I wanted to say as well is what it means to have a systems approach. That's what we're discussing today. And this is really about understanding how our policies, how the way we finance our programs, the way we have our workforce development capacity and how they're supported, the way we have curricula to support learning through play, the way we make sure our assessment standards and quality standards speak to that, and most importantly, the way we engage families and communities to support children in their learning journey with play as a central part of that is really what we're here to discuss today. And I think all our panelists have a lot to share with us from their experience in that area. So before we get to our panelists, I'm really delighted to introduce Cherie Lamotte, who I've known even before I was at UNICEF. Cherie has got over 25 years of experience in education, in early childhood development, in development settings. She's got experience ranging from her own home country of South Africa, where she's still very involved, through to East Asia, Eastern Asia and the Pacific, Central Europe and Eurasia, and other parts of Africa as well. Until very recently, Cherie was a consultant supporting the World Bank with their Early Years program, which maybe many of you have come across these fantastic early years fellows in the countries that you work with. Well, Cherie was supporting the bank with that program. So I'm going to now invite Cherie to please come forward with your presentation, setting the scene for us on learning through play at global and the regional level. Over to you, Cherie.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. What a wonderful thing to have the opportunity to meet with so many people that I know from working in early childhood development, and particularly to be talking about young children and play, and to start it with so much energy and excitement. The video was really, really wonderful and actually quite moving. I have the honor of talking to you today about systematizing learning through play. And the way that I'm going to approach that is by sharing with you some of what I have learned just recently in undertaking a landscaping study on approaches to learning through play globally and also in the African context, looking particularly at opportunities for expanding quality and learning through play. And so here is some of what I've learned, and I promise you I didn't do my presentation together with Manisa, but I'm very excited to know that there's so much synergy between what we have to say. So let me just get my technology right. There we go. I want to just quickly give a little bit of context, and I think much of it has already been covered in what Manisa had to say around why a focus on learning through play. And so a quick look at this very interesting graph, which comes from the UNICEF recent 2019 report, with data that is really underscoring the severe learning crisis, which we know is undermining growth and the well-being of citizens in Africa. That's around the very point that Manisa is making. We have children attending pre-primary schooling who achieve better than children who aren't attending pre-primary schooling, but still not sufficiently well to be set on a pathway of lifelong learning and really good success. The figures don't change up the learning ladder, despite the fact that we're increasing enrollments in pre-primary schooling. And we've seen a fairly big drive to actually achieve increased enrollments. The outcome is that what we're looking at is that less than 20% of children are proficient in reading and mathematics by the time they finish their primary years. This is in spite of those children who've even been through pre-primary schooling. What it's really, I guess, pointing to is that the learning crisis isn't just about getting children into the education system, into the pre-primary sector. It's also about what that sector or pre-primary schooling actually has to offer. So motivating for political support to prioritize access for young children to ECD services is critical, but focusing only on this goal is not going to be sufficient to realize the multiple benefits. So the core learnings for me, and before I go into actually talking about some of the specific examples, have been that, first of all, as this webinar series is focusing on, is that play is a right. Play is also how children learn best. So the pedagogy of play then is central to child-centered practices. It's the core feature of quality in ECD provision. And so really, I think the core message that I'm wanting to talk about today is that play is our strategic opportunity, that by integrating learning through play into early learning environments, we strengthen quality. And by strengthening quality, we have the potential to boost children's learning outcomes and to prepare them for primary schooling, and in addition, preparing them for a fast-changing world. So let me just take a look then at what were some of the highlights and strategic opportunities that I found in looking at this landscaping. It was really quite a massive exercise. So I've really tried to zoom in here in my conversation with you today about what were some of the key systems kinds of areas that landscaping spoke to. So I just want to quickly clarify, and I know we all have expertise in this area, but just to be very clear that in talking about learning through play, we all know it's integrating this wide range of children's abilities, from intellectual through to also what their creative interests and abilities. As we've already talked about, it's looking at preparing children for a fast-changing world. But what I also wanted to draw our attention to is that it's a multifaceted continuum. When we talk about play and children's play in early learning, we have different kinds of play. Child-directed, where children are choosing for themselves, fantasy play, free play. We also have adult-guided play, in which children are engaged in playful, fun activities, but at the same time, they have very specific learning intentions, and adults or their caregivers are actually engaged in that learning with them and in facilitating that learning. And certainly what the evidence is showing is that that's the sweet spot. Certainly in terms of getting children ready for school. So for children in those early pre-primary stages where their caregivers actually set up and engage in these kinds of learning exercises and activities with them, there's a greater rate of success in terms of what children are learning through that guided play. Some of the key things in the landscaping is there's a growing evidence base, and that learning through play has really seemed to be lit up across the African continent. We found over 60 actors doing exceptional and influential work, some already working collaboratively, others pursuing similar but separate goals and separate agendas. But altogether, the reach of learning through play is across almost every country on the continent. And that in itself, I think, is a superpower. In several instances, we have multiple...
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's Manisa. I don't mean to interrupt you, but would you mind putting your thing on slideshow? Because colleagues can't see all your slides. So if you could put it on slideshow, that would be great.
Oh, that's super helpful. Thank you. And sorry about that. Let me just go...
So if you go down to the bottom, you see where you have that list of stuff, just down there.
Oh, sorry, I should have done that from the outset. No, it's not putting it onto slideshow. There we go. Okay, is that better? Have you got the full view now, Manisa?
Oh, I have. I hope that's okay for colleagues. But Sherry, if you go, you see where you've got the bottom. You've got notes, you've got comments. If you go right to the bottom, and then you see next, go left. No, not that one. Left.
Oh, here.
That's it. But that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I'm having to learn all these new skills. Okay. Does that help everyone? Okay, I've already covered this slide. Let me just move on. Oh my gosh, now, okay. We've gone through that one. Okay, so really picking up from there, recognizing that there is this expansive work that is happening across the continent, not always connecting though, actors not always connecting with each other, not necessarily working together. But that said, we also know that we have numerous global and regional networks which are active in the early childhood sector, not necessarily specific to play, but all with an emphasis and touching on play as part of a wider early childhood agenda. That the potential here is to harness and increase the reach of learning through play initiatives to influence the quality of early learning for more children. And really the nub of this is to do this through systems building. Many of these organizations recognize that government is the lead role player, and most would also recognize that without government, efforts can't be scaled. Some of these organizations have a very specific entry point into actually collaborating with the state, but not all of them do. The current evidence around supporting and resourcing a lot of this work is that investments in ECD are not favoring early childhood education and care. The balance of, at the moment, funding goes to health and nutrition, which is a good thing, but at the same time, we need to step up the amount of resourcing that's going to ECCE in order to be able to effectively systematize and expand. Key messages that advocate for increasing investments in early learning and early learning access and quality could bring more resources for learning through play. Then some of the low-hanging fruit in this landscaping are the key areas of focus that are common to most of the work that is being done. The focus on parenting, on playful interaction in the home, and that's been a particularly big thing through the COVID-19 crisis, where many programs have pivoted and governments have pivoted to support what is happening in the home. The other area of focus very much on building caregivers' capacity, practitioners' capacity to be able to use and implement, and linked to this, the development of guides, resources, training packages, and so on. Again, this is happening in pockets. This is not necessarily connected. Organizations like AFCAN, the AU, UNICEF do a lot of work to try to pull these initiatives together, but perhaps there are more opportunities to do this in a way that is systematic, and this is where collaboration becomes an important thing. And looking here to some of the lessons from institutions and organizations that are collaborating to expand systematization. Just two examples here is Harvard Center of the Developing Child, where there's a reach across. They have a community of practice that engages global, domestic researchers, practitioners and developers, nonprofit leaders, etc., in looking at play. How do we leverage off these kinds of initiatives and systematize them so that we can expand and deepen the kind of work that needs to be happening through play to really strengthen quality in the way that we expand access. The other example is the virtual global COP facilitated by the Lego Foundation, Play Futures, which really seeks again to build common understanding and access by a wide range of audiences. But perhaps here, some of the common kinds of messaging needs to be much more around how to systematize and build strong systems. The last leg of this is really looking at communication. Fine-tuned messages have been shown to reorient public and decision-maker thinking and have the potential to lead to dramatic change. There are a number of communication campaigns in the landscaping, lots of opportunity here to engage, and many of these communication campaigns actually have their roots in government and government's interventions. NGOs have played a really important role in supporting the state, in motivating the state, in advocating for the take-up of this kind of work and these kinds of messages. We will share the presentations with you, so I'm not going to talk to all of the detail of this particular slide because I'm also watching my time. So really the key elements I think that have potential to really build strong systems is this this kind of network of ideas that emerged from this landscaping, looking from influences and thought leadership to focusing on change leaders, but obviously always with a view to how do we systematize to really strengthen and build greater sustainability and ensure that this message and the capacity to take forward learning through play is always embedded alongside the message of access, accelerating access with quality, and that quality means accelerating access to learning through play. So really, in summary, I just wanted to leave you with this kind of the thinking for me in terms of how to crystallize some of this thinking is that we are looking at 53% of young children are learning poor and begin primary school with gaps in their basic cognitive abilities. They're unprepared for the 21st century. By strengthening the expansion of a focus on quality to reduce learning poverty and embed the pedagogy of play, we can boost ECCE in education systems and processes and programs in African countries. And the 4 legs of this potentially for systematizing are at a policy change level. They're preparing teachers through in-service and pre-service. It's energizing parents and supporting parents to take this on in terms of the way they raise their children in the home. And it's through strong communication and advocacy, the sharing of resources, not reinventing the wheel. There is so much that is already available that needs to be stepped up to building stronger systems. And so I come back to where I started, that play is our strategic opportunity. Let's make sure that it's embedded in the expansion of early childhood development and education, that it's embedded in nurturing care agendas, that it's part of government policy, part of teacher training policy, part of interventions to support parents, and that we do that at a systems level by working with the state in order to make sure that we are able to achieve scale, and that we also look at what the opportunities are to do that across other countries, so we aren't trying to do what's already been done and simply replicating. Thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Thank you so much. And colleagues, please do put your questions and reflections into the chat. I should have really said that before. I'm sorry I didn't say that before. And anything that you want to say, you want to reflect on from Sherry's presentation, when we come to the open discussion, I'll definitely bring you in and bring those points. So Sherry, I hope you'll be on standby to respond to any questions that come. And I think Sherry really nicely framed for us, actually not just the discussion today, but the subsequent discussions that you're going to have in the next webinars around what has to happen in the classroom, what has to happen at home. And she's really set the scene for how this is about a whole load of things coming together. I really liked that one of the last few slides that put you know, the pieces of the puzzle together, thinking about the political will that we need for this, the actual programmatic and systems thinking that we need to put, the advocacy and comms to get everybody on side, the building up from all the great work that's already being done that Sherry's research showed. And last but not least is what we can do to support parents and children in the home, even before they set foot in a school and in a classroom. So that's really nice framing comments, and I think sets the scene for our panel discussion. So what we're going to do is I'll introduce each of our panelists before they speak, and they're essentially going to share with us their views and their ideas of learning through play, and actually what they think we're going to need to take a systems approach. And this is experiences from across the continent, from Senegal through to Mozambique, Liberia, and Kenya too. So really, we're getting a nice breadth of experience, but I suspect we'll hear a couple of common themes and messages coming through. So first of all, I'm going to ask our colleague Shakira McIntosh to join us. Shakira is the senior comms consultant for one of my favorite organizations, Imagination Africa, who do a lot of really detailed quality technical work on early childhood development and learning through play, and play really as a way for children to build the skills they need for the future. So Shakira, please, can you share with us some of your thoughts on this topic of learning through play, the systems approach, a little bit on what you do and what you think we need to consider moving forward. Over to you.
Thank you, Manisa. Thank you so much. And thank you, Sherry, for really setting the scene for this discussion. I think it's so relevant and so timely, precisely at this period where, you know, a lot of children are not having as much access to play, and different situations at home are making it a bit more stressful and challenging for parents to really sort of be focused on supporting children's learning through play. So I'm really thankful, first of all, for this setting where we can have this discussion and share our thoughts and ideas on what we can do together. Because as you mentioned in the presentation, it's very much about a collaborative effort that's going to get us to where we need to go. Imagination Africa is an organization based in Dakar, Senegal. And we've been working since 2011 on child development, learning through play. That's really essentially how we started with, you know, math caravans in the street, but really engaging children in communities, playing with blocks and different materials that we always can find within our environment to help them develop an emerging mathematics skills. So that's really the genesis of our organization. We then created a center where we opened up a space for children to come in and really have a dedicated space for play, for learning. Our approach is very much design thinking, working with an approach that says we will follow children in their learning, right? We'll support their learning. We'll open up opportunities to be creative, to be innovative, to problem solve, but really letting children be the guide. So that's really the overall view of the space that we created. Our experience has shown that it's very much an ecosystem that will allow play to really be central to children's learning. So you need a strengthened ecosystem. That's what we've seen over the past 10 years of our work. And that's influenced a lot of what we're doing today. So we do campaigns mainly around the importance of play and how different groups within the society can support children's learning through play. So for example, in 2018, we launched a major campaign called Play is Essential. And the key point there was to get through messages to parents, to media practitioners, to teachers, engaging children themselves on what kind of skills and competencies play can help develop, and how the people around children, so not just parents, but everyone around children, interacting with children on a daily basis, can support the development of those competencies. So we provided, we had buses throughout the city with key messages to parents. We engaged in a series of podcasts with different media outlets. And so for us, that component of really campaigning and sharing and communicating that message of play and its role and its historic role, because something that's also quite important for us is to really tie it back to our daily realities in the country like Senegal and across the continent. Play, there are so many games that were always played that actually, in fact, once you start to talk about them and have people talk about their playful experiences as children, they start to tease out all the ways that they were learning through these games. So it's really going back to that source and bringing those back up in conversation through our campaigning and through our communications outreach. Another area that's really key for us and that we find to be quite impactful is working, especially in rural areas, with creating groups, what we call pods, for learning through play, where we bring in local media practitioners, we bring in local healthcare workers, we bring in local municipalities, local mayors, for example, and create a early childhood development hub with a focus on play at its center, learning through play at its center, and to support the capacity building of these different partners, these different members of this hub, be that through information, be that through training of school inspectors, for example, who can then share information with teachers in preschool and primary level education. So to really go to the source and build the capacity of the people, the key people in the ecosystem around children, so that they can support this learning through play agenda at that level. And then more recently with COVID, we've really started to focus on what kind of information we can provide via various online platforms so that parents can also support children's learning through play at home, be that by providing shows, so we created series of shows with activities and ideas and types of interactions that really support children's learning that are based on a positive, playful interaction. Just giving really parents some guidance on things that they can do to facilitate that. So that's really been the crux of our work over the past couple of years, and our key learning has really been that the ecosystem must be strengthened, and that we need to identify who those key folks are within the ecosystem and work to strengthen their capacity through both communications and formal training and information.
Great, thank you so much, Shakira, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions for you in the breakout. I think this area around the ecosystem and the players is a good one, and it would be nice to tease out from you a bit more on that. So thank you so much for your contribution. So our next colleague is from an organization, actually, that used to be one of our grantees when I was at the Open Society Foundations, Wana Sanana in Mozambique. And so we are really pleased to have Alfina Simaili Makua Kaua. Alfina, I want you to correct me if I've said your name wrong, because I don't like it when people get my name wrong. So please correct me. And she's going to share with us the experience from Wana Sanana. And this is really important because it's about a grassroots, community-driven organization and what they see in the heart of the community. So I think what Alfina is going to share with us is really going to be valuable when we think about, like Shakira said, the ecosystem to build for this support. Just for colleagues to know, Alfina is going to speak to us in Portuguese. So please, if you need interpretation, there's a little button at the bottom right of your Zoom screen with interpretation, and then you select the language of your choice. Over to you, Alfina. Thank you.
Muito obrigada. Meu nome é Alfina, sou da Associação Wana Sanana, que está a funcionar em Moçambique desde 2006 e apoia iniciativas do DPI, sobretudo no contexto rural, num contexto DPI inclusivo e centrado na criança. Eu vou partilhar um pouco a experiência do que a Wana Sanana vem respondendo durante este período de Covid-19. A Wana Sanana optou em adaptar e transferir o DPI e a recreação para as famílias. De que maneira? Nós tivemos que, primeiro, capacitar os educadores, os comitês, nesse contexto rural, também mobilizar os pais através de oficinas de educação parental, com jogos, brincadeiras que pudessem realizar com as crianças. Isso nos permitiu uma aceitação por parte dos pais para poderem entender como é que poderiam dar seguimento em casa da aprendizagem. Para esta atividade poder ir avante, as educadoras iam até as famílias para fazerem as atividades com as crianças, fazerem as brincadeiras tradicionais com as crianças, através de uma rotina diária desenhada, adaptada de acordo com a realidade de cada criança. Isso permitiu que a criança tivesse um guião diário do que ela poderia desenvolver durante o dia, no acompanhamento das atividades com os pais, e tinha também uma atividade programada lá, para além dos jogos, brincadeiras que ela fazia com os seus irmãos mais velhos e os outros irmãos da família e até crianças vizinhas. Sim, esta atividade permitiu que cada uma das famílias também começasse a desenvolver atividades livres em casa, criando espaços de brincadeira, que tinham lá alguns baloiços, alguns cantos com diferentes materiais, materiais de cantos de brincadeira, como panelinhas, alguns jogos. E quando a Ona Sanana percebeu esta parte e este interesse e esta iniciativa por parte dos pais, também começamos a promover uma dinâmica de um baloiço para uma família. Esta atividade permite que cada uma das famílias possa criar um baloiço dentro da sua própria casa para poderem fazer com as suas crianças. Essas atividades também permitem que as educadoras possam ir para lá uma vez por semana, desenvolver as atividades com as crianças, com o apoio do cuidador, quer seja o pai ou a mãe ou o irmão mais velho. Então, o irmão ou o pai participa desta lição e depois fica com atividades para ficar a desenvolver com a sua criança, com recomendações claras, até de brincadeiras, de partilha de brincadeiras que pode ficar a desenvolver com o seu filho em casa. Esta atividade também permite haver uma confiança, desenvolver confiança entre o educador e a criança, porque a criança praticamente desligou-se do educador quando as escolinhas fecharam. Mas com esta ligação do DPI nas famílias, permitiu que pudessem dar continuidade e continuar esta ligação entre eles para desenvolverem a confiança. Os educadores, de forma bimensal, de 2 em 2 meses, tinham que ter algumas capacitações que lhes permitiam também poderem preparar até as lições, os jogos, as brincadeiras, a própria criatividade que levariam até as famílias, de forma a poderem ajudar aos pais, porque nós sabemos que os pais têm muito conhecimento, mas em algum momento ficam um pouco limitados. Precisam sempre de alguém para incentivá-los, para recordá-los, de forma que pudessem desenvolver essas atividades. Porque a escolinha tem um parque de recreação, não só a escolinha, mas também no bairro, na escola primária, tem lá o parque, e sentimos que era difícil manter as crianças em casa enquanto tem um parque aberto na escolinha. Procuramos criar uma rotatividade. As educadoras iam para a escolinha e tinha lá um grupo de crianças limitado, de 10 crianças, que poderiam ir brincar nos parques e também nas hortas, criamos também hortas, em que os dias em que a criança vai cuidar da sua horta, também pode ir ao parque brincar e depois ir para casa. Então, esta atividade fazia com que a criança ainda sentisse esta ligação com a escolinha, não se desligasse completamente. Apesar de ela estar em casa, ela sempre sentia-se a participar das atividades que estão a ser desenvolvidas ao nível da comunidade. E nós sentimos muito o apoio dos pais, o interesse dos pais, até dos próprios líderes. Nós sentimos muito o apoio deles. Nesse contexto também, continuamos a dar assistência de saúde, continuamos também a assegurar o controle nas famílias, de forma que as crianças não estejam totalmente desligadas do contexto da escolinha, daquilo que é o programa desenhado pela ONU Sanana para apoiar a educação e assistir a criança nas nossas comunidades. Então, de uma forma geral, a ONU Sanana procurou responder esta componente de recreação e atividades do desenvolvimento da primeira infância nas famílias, mas através dos próprios pais e da própria comunidade. Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much, Alfina. And it's nice to have your presentation after Shakira talking to us about the ecosystem, you then speaking to us about parenting, families and homes as the center of learning. And then I like how we can bridge your two presentations to ask ourselves, what's the ecosystem to put in place to support the families and children in their home with their learning and having play as a core component. So thank you very much. Obrigada, Alfina. That was great. Thank you. Now we are going to move on to our colleague, Lily Oyari from Kenya. She's putting me to shame at least. She has two jobs. She's the founder and director of Little Rock IECD Center. She's also the chairperson for the Association of Christian Schools. So I don't know how you manage to do both these things. I can't even manage my one job, Lily. But you've been your organization has very much been at the forefront of advocating for a systems approach to early childhood education and to learning through play in Kenya. So I really hope you can give us some sense of what are some of the things you think need to be put in place in order for governments to support learning through play and support ECD. Over to you, Lily. Karibu.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon. As you've heard, my name is Lily Oyare. I'm the director, founder of Little Rock Inclusive Early Childhood Education. We are located in Ayani, Kibera, and we serve the population of the Kibera urban slum. We have a school which supports early childhood development center, and we're champions of inclusion because in our midst, we have children with special needs. So our center not only works with the regular children, but we have incorporated children of special needs. And we have basically everybody. So we started Little Rock way back in 2003 when the free primary education was started. Then I was working in a center, and we got all these kids coming into this center and they could not read and write. So that was the genesis and the journey for Little Rock. Then it was, we started off as Little Rock Early Childhood Development Center. But as we went on, we came across children of special needs who are being locked up in homes. So we decided to work with them. And as I speak right now, we have a total of 1,500 children who have gone through our program. 400 attend early childhood education every day. Our center is child-friendly. We have swings, we have a center, we call it a resource center where we have put different kinds, different items for learning. And play is one of the main ways in which children learn, and it has been very, very fun for all our children. As I speak right now, we have children, because we don't just work with you at the early childhood level, we transition the children to public primary school, and then we transition to high school, and then finally to university. So we can actually track our kids. At the moment, we have admitted 36 to different universities and colleges, and 913 have transitioned to primary school, and at the center we have 400. And out of these 400, 120 are children with special needs. So the journey has been very, very good. And the kids, you can see where the parents are involved, because our school, we involve our parents full time. Like they're the ones who are helping us with cleaning of the school. They're the ones who make sure that the children have nutritious meals. So the parents who are cooking in the kitchen, the people who are cooking in the kitchen are parents of the children. And even in the classrooms, they normally double up as assistants because our classes are all inclusive. Each class has between 5 to 7 children with special needs. So the parents are basically involved throughout. We have, during this COVID time, we had to come up with a plan, because our children cannot access internet. Some of our children cannot access the TV lessons because the parents cannot afford. Others cannot even access the radio lessons. So we quickly came up as educators with a plan of whereby our kids get the worksheets. So Mondays and Fridays, the parents come to pick the worksheets, and then they go and work with children at home. At the same time, we give them coloring pencils for them to have activities for play and other materials whenever the parents need them. But when we did that for about 3 months, we discovered that the parents were getting tired. So we decided that we will have the children back at school at different times with the teachers. So when you give out the worksheets, where a child is having a problem, the parent comes with the child, and then the child and the parent are taken through the activity. Then when they go home, they are able to work very well. And we have seen a lot of improvement. We came up also with the, because our school has the play area, so the kids come in at different intervals just to play and to make sure there is that continuity and there is no breaking between holiday and because of what is happening right now. And because of that, we have seen a lot of improvement in our children, in that they have not lost because of COVID. They are continuing to learn. We have activities like jump rope, where they come on Fridays and Wednesday just to jump. And that is part of play, because all the time academics or all the time book work makes Jack a dull boy. So we allow the kids to come in on Wednesday and Friday to do jump rope. On Tuesday and Thursday, they come in to do music. We are teaching them different kinds of instruments. There are those ones who are playing guitar. There are those ones who are doing flute. So we have activities throughout the week until Sunday. On Sunday, we engage them with the Word of God. So we have Bible study. Then after Bible study, everybody gets into whatever they love doing. Those ones who like dancing, they do dancing. Those ones who want to do music, they do music. And those ones who are continuing with jump rope, they do jump rope aerobics. So we have opened this space for our children, that there is play at the same time they are learning. And we are happy that our children are doing very well. For us, it is only for our children at Little Rock. Those ones who are not admitted at Little Rock, we are not able to work with them because all these things require resources. So we are speaking to our education officers around Kibera to see how the government can be able to incorporate all children, because whatever resources we have kind of raised them through well-wishers and partners who are helping us be able to achieve our vision and mission. So I would like the government to be involved in the sense that there's no this demarcation that this is a private child, and because you're in a private school, there is no capitation. So we are requesting and asking the government to make sure that every child is included in the capitation. It's not only meant for children who are in the public schools. And with that, then all of us will be at the same level. It doesn't matter where you are, we are all going to receive the same kind of treatment, and every child will be able to grow up. I like the play bit, which has kind of started helping the children who are in the public school, because in our activities like music and jump rope, we have incorporated our children who have transitioned to primary school, so they come back and do those activities, but at different days, because our ECD group is quite large, and we want all of them to participate in play, at the same time continue with the learning. We are also advocating for children with special needs, because they are a forgotten lot. They're locked up in their homes. Most of them, you find the parents cannot be able to carry them to school because of stigma. So we are advocates of inclusive education, and some of our children are showing a lot of progress. Yes, they have physical disability, some of them have intellectual disability, but they are able to participate in the different activities. And it's because we have included them, and we have not looked at their disability, but we have said every child is able to work through, whether you are regular or disabled. And this one has opened their world. I would give an example of the hearing impaired children. One of the girls is 4 years old, and the parents were saying that she is just good for nothing, fit for marriage. But when we started working with her and encouraging the parents to come and learn sign language, now the environment back at home has improved, because there everybody is able to speak to her through sign language. The siblings have learned sign language. Now this child is able to blend very well. If you come to Little Rock, you would not be able to tell apart who is a special need child and who is a regular child. And it's all because we have included everyone. The other group of children we are working with are children ages 0 to 3. And that is a group also I would ask the government to include them, because they are a forgotten lot because of our policies. Our policies say children start school at age 4. Yet the foundations are very, very important, because if we start early at age 1, you find the kids who started at age 1, they are able to start school at a very different level, and they are able to do their number work, they are able to do their languages, and by the time they're transitioning to grade school, they are super top in their academic. So we are encouraging the government to incorporate children who are between 0 to 3, and not for them to learn, but for them to be introduced and to activate the neurons, so that when they're in class, they're in the play group, they are able to manipulate the different, the blocks, the Legos, which are in the resource center. And because we have a resource center for that, our 0 to 3 children are doing very well. By the time they're transitioning to PP1, they are ready to continue with school, and we have had no dropouts because of that foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lily, and thank you for emphasizing a few things there. The importance of the advocacy to ensure inclusion of all children, whether that's the urban poor in Kibera where you work, or children with special needs, really talking about the financing so that all children can be supported, and also really thinking about children before the age of 4, so the very early years, the first 1,000 days, when we know that's the stage that's very critical for brain development. So thank you. Last but not least, we have our colleague from Liberia, from an organization I also know very well from my time at Open Society Foundations, the Carter Center in Liberia, S. Benedict Dosin. And he's going to talk to us about something really critical, especially now, I think, in the times of COVID, which is mental health and the importance of play as a way to secure healthy mental health, as it were, and how important that is for the work we want to do for young children. So before you start, S. Benedict, I want you to tell us what the S stands for, and then to share your thoughts. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Manisa. So, oh wow, I'm going to break this secret. I've been keeping it for a very long time. The S stands for Shah, the Iranian title for king. Okay. So, yes, I work for the Carter Center. I'm in charge of the mental health program in Liberia and in charge of all behavioral health activities. And basically, the center has worked in Liberia, particularly the mental health program, for about 10 years. And the focus has been supporting the government of Liberia, first in terms of building the workforce capacity. You might have read numerous literature that says that by 2009, 2010, Liberia had only one psychiatrist in country. So the idea was to develop a mid-level cadre that will be integrated throughout the primary care system to support that. And we have been training a number of workers in that area. So after doing this program for about 4 years, the government realized that there was a big gap in terms of the needs of children regarding mental health and social emotional development. And they asked the center to develop another cadre of workers to support that area in particular. So then we developed the child and adolescent mental health program. And this meant that we trained workers, but then we also developed a school-based program. And for the school-based program, what we first did, we translated the WHO Eastern Mediterranean School Mental Health Manual and trained teachers on that so that they will be able to identify young children with issues and then be able to provide initial psychological support to those children. We also worked with the school and translated the individualized education plan as well as the individualized family service plan for teachers and use in school. And the plan was to move forward to integrate that in all teachers training institutions. And we train teachers as well on brain science, because what we noticed, Lady alluded to about stigma against children or so, we experienced that a lot in schools. Not many teachers or even healthcare workers understood the development of children, how the brain works and how children play and why they need to play. And they were always blamed for whatever they were done. They got spanked and for playing. So part of the program was, first of all, to support the brain science development so teachers can understand how the brain works and develop in children, and then be able to adjust their lesson plan to meet the needs of the children. So where the particular child was at, you're able to work with that child to provide the right support, the right learning for them. And we set up what we call Parents Advisory Group, because there was no way to ensure that children had just the right support without involving the parents, and also making sure that there is the extension of the care and support and at the level of the home. So overall, we saw that mental health and social emotional development for children was seriously lacking. And people didn't really conceive how much those things affected the atmosphere or the environment for children to play and develop properly. And so we have been working there. And quite recently, we are working now on a project called Thinking Healthy. And basically, it is a psychological intervention developed in Pakistan and truly evidence-based and intended to help mothers, pregnant women with perinatal depression, so as to improve their psychological state and then be able to provide rush support not only for themselves but for children as well. And that really involved promoting social support. First of all, thinking how the mother thought affects her feelings and how it affects her behavior. So working with mother's personal relationship, working with relationship with family support system, and then working with relationship with the child. And so that's a project that we started during the COVID period, and clearly from all our experience that we saw with increased reported cases of depression and anxiety, not just within the general population, but specifically looking at the data with mothers as well. And so in our work overall, we've targeted building systems and mainly from a top to bottom approach and bottom to top approach. So from top to bottom, we're talking about, first of all, establishing and strengthening existing policies and programs to make sure that these child-focused activities or interventions that help the optimal development of them are included and integrated across relevant platform systems in the country. And then we also train workers, the workforce, to be able to provide that support. And that includes healthcare workers, that includes teachers, that also includes community leaders. So traditional leaders, community leaders, because we found out that from our work so far, they play a very important role in the community. They are well respected and achieve, or a religious leader could call a meeting and have everybody there and say something, and almost everybody is going to go with that. So with those people involved in terms of making sure that people give children the right opportunity to play, develop, and set the right environment for them to grow and develop properly, it helps make it easier for not just the government to see the need to support it, but also the parents and caregivers at the local level to take it seriously. So, and then we also, from top bottom up, we're working with communities, and as I mentioned initially. So clearly, from policy development to plans, we are pushing to ensure that everything so far can be embedded into the right systems. So we are at the stage where we are working with the Ministry of Education to embed the individualized education plan and family service plan, as well as the school mental health manual and the brain science program in schools. So we're going to start with all the teacher training institutions, where we make sure that at the pre-service level, so all new teachers coming out will have the right skills to be able to support this. So the curricula are already been developed, and the ministry has already endorsed those. So we're only working out the modalities and how to get it started. And the next thing about building capacity is our plan to train more teachers, to train more caregivers. So we particularly have a caregiver skills training program, which has not started yet, but we have set the pace by engaging all the right stakeholders in that to make sure that we can train caregivers, particularly to support children with special needs, developmental issues in that case. We really see from not just at the level of the school, but the level of the healthcare system, that stigma is very high. Healthcare workers and teachers, they seriously show some aversion towards people with special needs, people with disabilities, and children in particular. So this has been our strategy to get them involved, to understand this and know how to work with the kids. And we are promoting a very strong advocacy system. And one strategy that has worked so well for us is really working with persons with lived experience. So mainly live experience, of mental health, or however involving parents, of children who have disabilities or other special needs, that they can form part of this body to help push all related issues for the development and welfare of children and young people in particular. And we've seen that this movement with persons with lived experience has really contributed to the establishment of our policy, to the setting up of a national budget for mental health, to also setting up, establishing the legislation for mental health. So we know that this system works, and we use it, and the members of this are brought on board as partners, where we ensure that they can be the ones who are fully represented and articulating the needs of children and young people at the level at which we think it is important for them to access and speak at. And so,
Benedict, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure we get to a few questions. I've already let things overrun because you've all been so interesting what you have to share. So would you mind wrapping up for us?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So yes, overall, maybe from COVID main issues, we have seen issues with schooling where children have been out of schools and not getting education because all the school system in Liberia was set up to provide that support in terms of online learning or so, which was a serious difficulty for parents to help them, particularly for early childhood kids and where children were not properly adept to support them. So through the mechanisms of the Live Experience group, we have been able to reach out to young people, reach out to families to provide some support for children, and overall to ensure their development cognitively and also create the right environment for play.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm sorry I rushed you at the end there, but I wanted to make sure we had a bit of time for reflection. So I think, Benedict, you really brought us to really systems level thinking there. And you started us off on an area that is most critical for learning through play and early childhood more broadly, which is the workforce. We know that the most important interaction is between a child and their caregiver. Primary caregivers, of course, are the most important in those early years and forever, actually. But secondary caregivers are also very important. And that's about the workforces in education, in health. You mentioned also social welfare. So I think that was a really important contribution and reminder you gave us. You also talked about something that's very important, which is we can't start something new. It's about building on the systems that already exist. And you talked about strengthening existing programs. And I think that's very much the direction we want to head in. You also brought out the budget, you brought out the legislation and the policy environment that we need to be conducive to learning through play. So all of this, I feel, was really bringing out for us some of the key systems issues. I've noted from some of the questions and answers and comments that a lot has been on the programs you've heard about and the delivery, and I think some of those issues might be answered in the chat. But I want us to really think about the systems level issue this brings out. So I'm going to just pause for a moment and see if there's any of our colleagues online, or Stella, maybe you can help me with this, bringing in anybody who has a particular system strengthening question or systems approach question that we need to put to one of our panelists. Stella, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you very much, Manisa. So I'll call on my colleagues and they can pick. We have a number of questions that came in under the different languages, and we'll ask each of our colleagues to share one or two questions that are related to government strength, government and systems. There's a lot that came through on parental involvement, and maybe as the presenters speak, they can touch on parental involvement. Thank you. So we'll start with Sabi, who is doing it in
Thank
English.
you very much. Thank you very much, Stella. Indeed, we have very many questions. Maybe let me just say a few. We have one question from Frances Abud. What is the best age to start child-directed play, guided play, and adult-directed play? And we have another one from Florence Naluyinda Kitabire, specifically to Alfina. She asks, play has always been part of parenting in traditional Africa. How do we tap into this heritage to strengthen parents, caregivers' capacity to teach young children at home through play? And maybe to our last one from Frances Abud again, how do you involve parents with their children from birth to 3 years? Do they learn by watching older children play? How do they provide play materials at home?
Okay.
Yeah, that is what I have.
Thank you, Sabi. Very quickly from our colleague, French-speaking colleague. Please ask your questions.
Alors, il y a une question ici, et c'est ça. Quelle est la place de la technologie dans cette conversation? Il s'ensuit des débats sur la question de savoir si la technologie est bénéfique ou néfaste pour les enfants. Nous constatons une prolifération d'enfants à qui l'on fournit des appareils technologiques pour jouer dès leur plus jeune âge, par exemple 1 an. L'un des panélistes peut-il nous éclairer sur la technologie et le droit de jouer?
Okay, then we'll have Marie, who will speak from the Portuguese people. Thank you.
Ok,
Over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Stella. Temos aqui uma questão da Ignácia para a Cherie. Como é que vamos fazer a questão do aprender brincando para crianças marginalizadas que estão em zonas de guerra, que são refugiadas e que estão em áreas de pandemia como a Covid-19? Outra questão é do Ashfaq Keresh, pergunta a Alfina. Quais seriam as alternativas para a aprendizagem brincando durante a pandemia da Covid-19? A outra questão é é do Agostinho, para a Shaquila, Imaginando a África. Quais são as estruturas que são usadas no vosso trabalho nas áreas rurais?
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Manisa. Thank you so much, colleagues. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
here's the problem. We have about 8 questions and 8 minutes. I'm not going to put all 8, but I am going to ask every panel member to take 1 minute to respond to the question I put to you, and I'm going to make sure we get a question from all of the different interpreters that we had shared with us. So the first question I want to ask to Alfina, and it's about this issue on how we build on the African cultural heritage. So as you respond to that, Alfina, share with us very briefly your thoughts on what could be the role of governments and decision makers to make sure that the support we are giving to learning through play in the communities, like the communities that you work in, are really embedded and drawing on the existing culture in the community which you serve. Over to you, Alfina. 1 minute, please.
Obrigada.
Is Alfina on mute? I'm not hearing.
She is on mute.
Obrigada. Sim. O trazer DPI para as famílias foi mesmo para ajudar os pais a trazerem de volta as suas práticas. Então, a Ona Sanana percebeu que havia esta necessidade, porque os pais um dia também já foram crianças e já fizeram diferentes atividades tradicionais no bairro, e com certeza, neste momento, eles trazem de volta esta cultura, trazem de volta estes jogos tradicionais, e eles até transmitem uma emoção, porque eles não eram capazes até de perceber que é possível voltar a ser criança e brincar com seu filho, trazer esta prática de volta. Então, se os nossos governantes refletissem um pouco em trazer as brincadeiras para as nossas comunidades, através de direitos a parques para as crianças poderem brincar, eu quero acreditar que trariam de volta uma prática boa para as crianças. As crianças teriam mais tempo para interagir, socializarem-se e teriam mais ocupação em coisas divertidas e de aprendizagem. Então, se eu estivesse diante de um governante, eu pediria isto para montar mais parques nas comunidades, nas escolas, porque é disto que as crianças precisam. As crianças aprendem brincando e elas precisam disto de volta.
Great. Thank you so much, Alfina. Thank you very much. Next question I'm going to put to Chakira. What are the structures you think we need to put in place in rural areas to support learning through play, please?
I think the structure really goes back to the communities themselves. I think what we found to be most useful is to work with the people who come into the most contact with children, and not so much put a structure in place, but co-create a structure with the people who are on the ground. And I think one of the key things to make it successful and to make it sustainable and to make it something that thrives is the buy-in of all these different folks who can impact the outcome. So I'm talking about the mayors, I'm talking about the school inspectors who then, who are more sort of present and in the area much longer than an average teacher might be. So working with people like that, working with parents, working with the head of schools, working with healthcare workers, so that the structure is created at the community level that sort of pushes the agenda, buys into and pushes the agenda of learning through play and supports it locally. And I think everyone has a role to play. So it's really sort of bringing everyone in from that planning stage.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to bring our Francophone question to you, Lily. This was about the place of technology, but I want to join it up with another question. So you mentioned the challenges with remote learning for the community you serve in Kibera, but what could be a positive place for technology in supporting learning through play, especially now in the time of COVID for the marginalized children like those who you serve? Please, just 1 minute, briefly. Thanks, Lily.
Thank you very much. I said that the kids are the ones who cannot access internet, and the parents also cannot, but our teachers have access to the internet and to technology, and that is what they're using. Even the worksheets we are giving to the children, they are activities which have been researched on using technology. And even our teachers, 90% of the early childhood teachers have access to technology at school, and even the regular use of smartphones. So the teachers are able to do their research and come up with different activities for the children. When I said that our children are not able to, it's because the children, but now our teachers, we have empowered our teachers, and they are able to access different innovative ways and creative ways to make sure that the worksheets they're giving the children, they incorporate play. So the teachers do research, and technology is very important because it has opened this world where they can get every material to help these children who have little access.
Thank you, Lily, very much. And the Shah of Monrovia, last but not least. I like these questions that Francis was asking us about age-directed play and birth to 3 and the role of play. I wonder if you want to end with anything on the importance of that from the mental health perspective. So essentially building a strong mental health for young children from birth and the role of play in those very early years. Over to you, Benedict. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, one important thing that we're doing, and we think it's really going to help support this area, is through the Thinking Healthier program. As I mentioned, this is a real evidence-based psychological intervention for women. And this is where it begins from during pregnancy to postnatal. So the mother is able to really provide the right support to the child. But this is not based around the mother only. It also involves the parents. So the father or social support system can be involved and build up so that they can work with the children in the right way until one and moving forward. And the other thing we do mainly is by training the healthcare workers, giving them the right skills to be able to support these children, whether at the primary care system levels in our health system or at the primary school level, because we have a school-based program where there is a physical space with mental health clinicians and who are stationed there to work with children who have social emotional issues, who have medical issues, who have anything related to anything that may support or affect their ability to grow well and play. And so they are in that environment working with the school system to make sure children have just the right opportunity to carry on.
Thank you very much, Benedict, and thank you for being so succinct. I'm sorry, we're 1 minute over. Please indulge me for 2 minutes to hand over to you, Janet, for a few closing remarks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Manisa. And very quickly, we will not live up to our mandate before we at least produce something that speaks to the various stakeholders that we hold dear, speaks to government. What exactly are we saying on the issues of building systems to support learning through play? And we have put together, and I want to say with the very special support of other colleagues and Sherry as well. And we are saying that in our call to action today, this series of webinar on the right to education calls on duty bearers for the scaling up of early childhood care and education services of quality. Government leaders should take decisive and bold steps to support and stimulate the take-up of play-based pedagogies. Gathered virtually, we call on governments, development partners, civil society organizations, practitioners, and stakeholders in early childhood to 1, advocate for child-centered play-based pedagogy as key to quality provision and a critical feature of the expansion of ECD services. 2, activate government ministers and leaders to be champions for children's learning through play, recognizing that advocates in high places can play critical role by raising visibility and putting pressure on other parts of the system to adopt approaches and strategies that support learning through play. 3, promote the inclusion of the pedagogy of play in sector-specific policies and directives, ensuring that the right of every child to play and to learn through play is systematically embedded and that local laws supporting play are enforced. 4, increase and improve domestic and international investments, and we're saying at least 1% of the GDP to enable the expansion of early childhood services of quality, which includes resources for play-based teaching and learning. And 5, develop public awareness and stimulate demand by working with existing programs and services to facilitate the adoption of play-based approaches through interaction in the home, in ECD programs within teacher training institutions and at community level. And we're saying adopted for media sharing, this day of 2nd December 2020. I want to really thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you also for your interest in being part of these webinars. I want to really thank our moderator, Manisa. Thank you, our panelists, for your sharing and your valuable experiences that you have brought on board, as well as my colleagues from AFCAN. Thank you so much always for your commitment. And our esteemed participants, on display is a survey. Please take 1.5 minutes to just give us feedback about how our webinar is. How would you rate the webinar? What were your expectations met? That's in a minute. Please give us that experience so that when we meet you on 9th for the other webinar and on 16th for the other webinar, we are better than we were today. So I really thank you so much. And on behalf of the Executive Director of AFCAN, Dr. Lynette Okengo, I want to thank you so much, and see you in our next webinar on 9th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you so much, colleagues. Stay safe.
Thank you all. This is the end of this webinar.